Welcome to the OTTRED Spotlight podcast. I'm lucky enough on a daily basis to be exposed to conversations with people all over the world at every different level when it comes to the OTT arena, the direct-to-consumer side, the platforms that support all of the D2C organizations, as well as the hardware and increasingly SaaS-based software that creates virtualized production environments. Today, I'm very excited to be talking to Ash Rite, who is the head of growth and marketing at the OSN group across OSN, OSN Plus and OSN TV. Ash, welcome to the OTTRED Spotlight podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We made it happen.
I know. After Christmas, last year was very, very busy.
Yeah, you had a super busy year. We'll be talking about that.
Yeah. No, it's great. And it's really good to be here. The studio is super cool. So thanks for having me.
It's all right. It's a pleasure. There's so much that I want to talk to you about, Ash. I think that the complexion of your career, the things that you've done, the perspective that brings to what you do now, all of those converge, I think. And then if you take the context of OSN and what's happening in this region into a super, super interesting place that you're right slap bang in the middle of.
It's fun. I don't think I could have told you 15, 18 years ago that I'd be sitting in Dubai doing a podcast about marketing. It's fun. It's very interesting.
Well, you look like you enjoy it. Whenever we meet up and talk, you're wearing a big smile. I want to start off, Ash, by giving people who have maybe heard of you or don't know you, who maybe watching on LinkedIn Live or YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple, a feeling for what the journey has been from a professional perspective for you, because now you've got a very commercial role, but you've also got a very creative side as well.
Yeah, I think it's actually really hard to find that mix, especially in Dubai when I first got here. I remember saying to my husband, I'm like, I'm never going to work locally. I'm going to have to go back and forth to LA for my entire career. And so it's been an amazing evolution to be in Dubai and the region itself and see where something has been traditionally very commercial come a lot more brand, commercialized, globalized, following those industry trends. And my experience, 15, 16 years of being in the entertainment industry, I started as a content producer. I started working for broadcast networks as something would be, starting in Toronto, really, for Nat Geo, working for all those networks, and then really working my way up from an independent production angle. I started, cut my teeth in animation, and anybody who's worked in animation knows that it is a right mix of commercial, creative, tech, product, everything. And it's and if you've ever had to do 200 reshoots on one frame, then you'll know the process. And I'm meticulous about process, and I think that's really played hand in hand with marketing. But I went from doing animation to long form scripted dramas, and then to a commercial role at a kind of fairly big studio in LA. And really overseeing a huge division there. So everything from concept, screen to monetization, everything from contracts, but also IP building, which is really, I think, the connector to marketing. I think storytelling is really how it works and how you pull it all together. And so it's been an amazing process.
Storytelling, yeah, absolutely. Common theme across multiple sectors. Has it been a deliberate journey for you, Ash? Is it something where you're like, next I want to do this? Or has it been one of those success stories where it's like, you've kind of tumbled, fortunately, from one thing to the next and ended up in a great position?
Yeah, I think it has been just very much a natural, organic process. It hasn't much
of describing it.
Natural, organic. Yeah, or call it like organic search in marketing terms. But, I was working with Nick Forward, who was obviously did a stint with us at OSN. And it's the same skills in IP and brand building that you build from content production. There's a lot of crossover skills. I don't think somebody who has solely traditional marketing experience can potentially market for all types of products, but modern marketing for entertainment products is a very, production heavy and media channel heavy kind of operational role. So I think from an intent side, from a career point of view, it was certainly not my intent, but I also think content production itself can be niche. It can be very hard. I think, at one point I was in production on something from development to execution 7 years. It's a very long process. You have to really love what you do. And I think everybody should love what you do, but it was a nice welcoming change to be more in a commercial role that you could see just results a lot quicker.
You say that, Ash, but you started in a commercial area.
Yeah.
Blue Ant.
Yes, well, Blue Ant, yes, of course. Yeah.
It's interesting for me because when I went through your history and kind of DNA of When you started in that sales role, what was it, in marketing?
Very
ad
junior. It was like
sales?
one of my first roles.
How did that go? Did you love it or hate
I
it?
did. I worked for someone named Mike McLaughlin. He was the head of Fox and Chendo for almost a decade. And he was a mentor for me and really just learning very roots at that role. That was my first job, and then really just meeting the right people. I think that was part of it. It's all networking as well, as you know.
How did it feel when you came into the kind of media world? Did it feel like your natural habitat? Because it feels like it now.
Well, of course, going to Cannes a few times a year is natural.
Yeah, anyone can do that.
I really fell into that, and there was one of those days, those fortuitous days when the wrong person doesn't show up for a meeting, and you step in, and you're like, oh wait, I was made for this business, and
Is that what happened?
oh yeah, of course, and I mean. MIPComs and MIPS and all are full of people not showing up for meetings, I think. But no, it's I certainly obviously always love content and production and getting to know the best in the business through all this networking and being in Toronto and LA and going back and forth and really operating internationally as well, doing shoots in London, Madrid, Ireland, Asia, everywhere for 10, 12 years was incredible experience in meeting all the companies.
It's interesting as well, because we were talking before we turned the cameras on about YouTube, ad monetization, all of that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And that's kind of what you were initially, that was the petri dish that you were initially exposed to as the dimension of the media sector.
Yeah.
Do you think it's changed massively, or do you think the pendulum's just swinging?
No, it's in terms of production.
No, in terms of ad sales and the monetization, more commercial side of it.
I think it has to be part of your business, right? Especially if you're building your own brand, your IP, especially like as a big major spender in the region on media.
Yeah.
You either spend on other people's channels, you spend on your own channel, building it up from a brand point of view. And just, Google's incredible, but it's also for us in MENA. YouTube is the number one most watched platform. In Saudi and the GCC and everything. And I can know from my kids, they watch it as well as OSN Plus. But
Yeah, absolutely.
they watch it in addition. But no, YouTube is a very, very important channel. For monetization, it's incredibly lucrative. But they don't.
It's got my attention. It's got my attention at the moment. It's kind of fascinating because you can see, I feel like YouTube's been through this oscillation of being big years ago, and then it kind of started dying off a little bit.
Yeah.
And now the resurgence of YouTube, debatably globally, as the OTT platform of choice. One of the guys that works for me in the recruitment business, I just watch YouTube all the time. Whatever I want, in however much depth. Some of the production quality is crappy. Some of it's absolutely mind-blowingly good for the type of platform that it is. And we ended up in that conversation about how much money people are making actually out of it.
The monetization part is really incredible. But you look at YouTube Shorts, it's another TikTok, it's another Instagram in terms of the platform. I think it's indistinguishable besides the content that they have and then the ads that they have. Right. So will it be my only platform that I watch? No. I think that's, I think for video streaming, audio streaming, a lot of people, YouTube have rights that other platforms don't have rights, especially for content that is not mainstream, and it gives the content creators ability to build their own brand.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned a moment ago the region. Now, if I've got the numbers right, OSN is present in 22 territories across the region.
Correct. Well done.
And a massive amount of diversity within that region in so many different dimensions, economically, demographically, even just from a geographic space perspective.
Sure.
When you came into OSN and you looked at that, what's the initial reaction when you look at all of the different complexion of what the space is that one brand has to cover? How do you interpret?
I just couldn't figure out why everybody hasn't watched Succession. I just don't understand. The people like me, like, how do you not know what Succession is? Like, why has all of Egypt not watched Succession? I couldn't wrap my head around it, especially coming from the Western markets where awareness, we start brand building and IP building 6 months, at least 6 months, 8 months in advance in terms of pre-promotion. Yeah. It was a lot of trial and error, and it still is, and we have to take a very localized approach to every market. There's also other components at play, right? You can drive search, you can drive awareness, you can drive all these things, but then there's the product and there's price and there's all these other even market, like looking at North Africa and Egypt and
absolutely
connectivity versus GCC. So everything needs its own customized and tailored campaigns by market, and then we judge other metrics like LTV and all the other things that
It fascinates me. And, I always, OSN has had my attention since I moved to the region, because I think that the whole OSN story, the ownership structure, OSN, the brand, there's been a brand for me that I associate a high level of equity to when it comes to that kind of premium branding. And I think in this region, you could debate the fact that maybe that's reflected in some of the pricing strategy as well. But you can't just overlay that to Egypt.
Yeah.
It's totally different. So how do you maintain that kind of positive torsion with a brand where you don't want to erode what the perception is of that brand in one market, and you're trying to propagate and penetrate another market in your role as head of growth and marketing? That's a real intellectual as well as creative challenge.
Absolutely. And obviously it's done with a very good team at OSN, and a lot of people who've been there a long time, and a lot of people like Brian Mestel, who I work with really closely. And we were tasked with the job of, I think OSN had many iterations of a streaming product, but it was always tied to its broadcast product. And I think there was good sentiments, and there was a few bad sentiments as well in terms of pricing. And our task was to really introduce OSN Plus without losing its brand value to the market in a way that we're accessible, we have content, you are not tied to contracts, all these things that consumers expect now, especially from the SPAL platform.
Yeah.
But we're also premium, and you'll enjoy the experience and you'll get your value. So I don't know if anybody knows how to do it exactly right yet, but I think obviously we've made massive improvements.
It must constantly change, right? Especially if you look at some of the economic oscillations that happen, particularly across North Africa. You must be constantly recalibrating that. That's what the business model is.
Yeah, and I think next year, later this year, I'm still in last year. Later this year, we'll be launching an ad product, which will be great for the North African markets as well. So we can subsidize our content costs through that, because at the end of the day, and all the, global players will say the same, it's the unit economic costs of your content. So how do we make that work from a subscriber level and revenue and brand? And I think, obviously even news today about just the cutting of content spends across the globe. But what does that mean for the consumer, and how does that impact their price that they pay on a monthly basis? I don't even want to tell you how much I pay. I pay for every platform. My husband doesn't see those.
Well, if he's watching the podcast, Steve, now that he's just spending too much on the subscription.
I know, but it's so worth it. But I probably pay way more than I ever did for cable, which is funny.
But everyone's got it right, and it's not just a kind of across music and all that sort of stuff. I want to touch on the ambient stuff as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that fascinates me about meeting all the people I do in the broadcast arena, and particularly OTT, is the number of different skill sets and passions and areas of domain expertise that people have got that keep this sector moving forwards and, constantly evaluating things. It's a fast-moving sector. What are the things that keep you excited about working in the sector? You're always so upbeat. You're always really enthusiastic about what you do. What fuels that?
Honestly, I love the cross-section of, we get to work with the best content in the world. Like when I first came to OSN, I was like, why is the whole region not subscribed? I don't understand. It's like 3 platforms in one, but obviously coming from a Western mindset, and obviously local content is incredibly important. But having all that content, all those movies, everything, the content's incredible, and working directly with the HBO teams and Universal and everything, we work on hand in hand on marketing, go-to-market plans, annual plans. So it's that's a very fun challenge. And then secondly, the growth of OSN and reintroduction to even younger consumers. Obviously we're playing a lot to that 20 to 38-year-old demographic. It's the biggest demographic in the world right now in this region. So it's a really incredible opportunity to do that, and launching things like that leadership. And we obviously came to our CX summit in Q4, and those things are innovative for the region.
That CX summit, Ash, I walked in there and I was like, this is not just an event, this is a statement.
It's an experience.
It was it was amazing. It was mind-blowing. And I guess for me that just kind of substantiates what I just described in terms of my perception of OSN. If it's an OSN thing, it's going to be glossy. It's going to have a certain magnitude about it.
That's the attitude. That's what we're going for. So I'm glad to hear it. But it's the experience economy. I think look at Netflix launching all those restaurants, even based on IP. I think what we promise is a seamless entertainment experience, both offline and in product. And I think that goes to our partners, that goes to the region. That's the perception that the brand needs as well. So I think experience economy is a very valuable thing to build, but it takes time and it takes a lot of effort. So
we had someone in the studio last week, Amir Mortazeh, the guy that had developed for Do products. He coined a brilliant saying. He said, content is king, but experience is queen.
Yeah.
And we all know who runs every household, right? Even if it's the castle, it's the queen. And I really think that fits well with the kind of OSN, the point that you just made. When you look at the kind of, I suppose, your personal competitive horizon, other marketing directors, other heads of growth across other regions, if you had to summarize for 2024 what great marketing is going to be about, what's the DNA? What's the blueprint?
Omni-channel. Just full omni-channel, full funnel, innovative campaigns. I think that's what everyone's looking at. Obviously, we're aware and in align with all HBO, and I think that is, the MO across. I think that's what speaks to consumers. I think they don't want to be. You need to speak to them in innovative ways, in ways even from a social perspective, paid or organic, in ways like I'm creating assets now I wouldn't dream to have been like, the quality is not there, but that's the way that consumers need to be spoken to in terms of like the storytelling. And I think it's omnichannel marketing, it's omnichannel storytelling, it's being innovative and efficient on your budget. So, the budgets have always come down. Budgets always come down. That's the way, but how do you utilize it better? And what are the metrics in which you can account for and what you shouldn't account for? And I think buzz is something that's a very soft metric, but is super uber important for it. And then feedback and sentiment, and how does that relate to your strategy?
I was going to ask you about this, Ash, because feedback, metrics, all of these kind of things naturally allow us to drift towards a topic that I think must be more important than ever for people that have got the kind of accountability at the top table that you've got, which is data. How much time do you spend looking at data? I bet it.
A lot. And I mean, it's even just aligning the data. It's also a fun experience trying to follow what that journey is and the types of users, especially and I'm just speaking to the streaming platform. And obviously we have OSN TV as well that's a whole different set of parameters to look at and a whole different user experience as well. But the data is incredibly important. And so but now we're also looking at how are we going to operationalize the data? How do we use AI to better leverage and amplify what we're learning and track it in real time? I think that's also a really important thing. Is like post-campaign reports can only be so useful. But when you have things that are, I think, especially now that we look at different platforms like Ongami or whatever, growth looks very different per product, right? Yeah. So our product is like this, like all SVOD platforms based on content. And you need to just capitalize on those opportunities as much as possible. That doesn't always work with data feedback, right?
What's the God metric to you? When you look at the data, when you get to your desk Monday morning, probably every morning, and you get all this data or you've got it, what's the key one that you look towards? What's the God metric?
CPA, but LTV is equally important, I would say. The husband and wife of Yeah, of course, because if you can keep somebody longer, you don't have to you obviously spend the money to reacquire them. And that's also the difference is the churn. The churn is obviously the other, person in the marriage, I guess you could say. Churn.
Yeah.
It's churn is and our churn is very good considering other global standards, I think you would find.
Yeah.
But it's still like, how do we continually re-engage the customer, and what are we trying to do to keep them there as well? So it's interesting engagement, but that's a product experience as well. Like I said, the queen.
I can imagine. I can imagine the counterbalance between reviewing the data, getting creative, and then crystallizing whatever the culmination of those efforts are into, okay, this is what we're going to do Q1, this is what we're going to do Q2 with whatever releases you've got.
Yeah.
Do you see that? Do you see the massive oscillations when you release, say, for example, a new series of Succession or something like that, as you see the roof get blown off the numbers?
Yeah, I'm super excited about Monday because we're launching the new season of True Detective.
Yeah.
We're launching the new Peacock series, TED, the series. It's an event series as well this weekend. So we're just past the writer's strike and everything. So we're starting to get, obviously, the influx of all the titles that, one, haven't been able to be promoted because of the actors' strike, but two, were delayed for, obviously, production reasons and everything. So that's exciting. Then we have Halo Season 2 and The Regime launching all before Ramadan. So it's going to be, it's going to be very busy. But also from a marketing spend, you don't want to keep you can't be in your people's face all the time. You have to just go like this in waves and hedge your bets.
That must be a fine balance to strike as well in your role, because I've got the list here of the relationships you've got. There's Warner Brothers, there's HBO, Paramount Plus, a whole slate of Sky Studios, Peacock's original, NBC. You mentioned earlier the Arabic and Turkish studios as well. How do you stay humble?
No, of course, there's amazing executives over at OSN, and I think we're all just very passionate about the content, but it's great working and getting the international standards, and we get a lot of great assets. And I think the question is, how do we adapt the assets and stay within, the true origin of the programming, but for the local audiences, So I think, some things are more accepting than others. Like Halo, I think will be great for the audiences where comedies are a bit tougher. They're a bit more niche.
Yeah.
So no, it's great. Everything has its own approach.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the recent announcements, because agnostic of what the brands involved are, which in this instance is obviously OSN and Garmin, what that represented to me when the news broke, we've known each other for a while, how excited I get about progress in the market. And I think 2023 was a bit of a flat year when it comes to, everyone was a bit cautious, a bit reticent to do. There's a lot of macroeconomic stuff going on. But at the end of the year, I'm flicking through my LinkedIn and I see these announcements. I'm like, this is happening on my doorstep in Dubai. What that represents to me is a distinct and tangible step towards convergence of formats, kind of convergence in terms of brands as well. What does it represent strategically, either locally or globally, in terms of what you think might unfold with other brands?
Yeah, I mean, I think, from the origins of it, it's a great story from two homegrown brands. Like Ami's an amazing brand, has a huge base, has a great celebration of like local entrepreneurship as well. Ali Habib's incredible, and and OSN obviously coming together and finding that balance. I think when you look globally, you can see a natural consolidation, especially like finding synergies, adoption of media. A few other players have been looking at single app, and it depends if you're a premium product or a terrestrial product. Like Super RTL obviously creates something fully music video, find news, everything. Max has news. They're trying out news within their new reinvigorated app. Obviously YouTube keep it very separate from their own, music and video, and find cross marketing across it, and same with Apple. So I think from a user perspective, they're going to, show what they want to do. You know what I mean? We're going to follow the customer, and in the way you can't cannibalize your audience. There's a lot of self-bundling already happening. I think there's only 10% of people will continue using the apps they currently are. So do we consolidate for them? I think these are all these different questions we're asking.
So many frontiers. Yeah. I can only imagine what it's like over there at OSN HQ trying to evaluate what to be first.
Closing's going to be in March, and then after that. So
what interests me about it, I suppose from a structural and human capital perspective, is when any organization in any sector goes into that mode where you're playing at a different level because something like the Angami OSN thing has happened, you almost start a fresh cycle of growth, and that's where it plays directly towards where you're steering the ship. And also if you look at Ellie's background, Ellie's was CTO.
Yep.
Yeah. So you've got all that kind of tech idea origination now being poured into this platform that's already got hundreds of millions of followers.
Yeah.
It'll be really exciting to see what's going to happen in terms of what converges, single app, whatever.
Yes.
I'm watching with bated breath to see what's going to happen there, and also the kind of what ripples it causes locally and globally. Because I think it was a brave step to take, I think, but one that was inevitable to happen somewhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, Joe and Ellie, it's a huge vision. And I think, I don't think anybody knows exactly how it's going to transform. And I think the intent is to enrich the media experience and then obviously provide scale, right, from a synergy and business commercial opportunity, which is great. And I think both businesses have really great executives that we're going to be able to figure out the right processes, which is really exciting. But I think you'll find that places where OSN is really strong, Angami could help or be helped in that respect, and vice versa. So there's going to be a lot of nice synergies in that respect. But from a user experience point of view, I think the intent is really just to provide such an enriched experience. Obviously, they have Arabic content as well, and the tech. I think it's all about investing in our own product and our tech. And I think that's also owning your own tech IP is a really important strategy.
The tech topic interests me too. The stack behind creating that experience, the experience.
Get Ali in here. I can't talk to that.
I'm not going to ask you anything intrusive, but I, kind of coming from a tech background, even before the recruitment chapter of my career, and having an understanding of how many different types of platforms it takes, how many different types of hardware, the distribution of those, particularly now virtualization and cloud is such a big thing. I can only imagine how many brains are whirring away there in Angami and OSN to go, okay, what's the best stack? What do we keep, or what do we end of life? What do we, it's like, there's so many questions to answer.
Yeah, the product team there is very, very strong by all accounts. So I think, they're obviously figuring out exactly what the way forward will be when the time is right. But no, it's incredibly important to innovate in that respect. And I think Angami has shown that this business over the last 10 years. And it's really started from the ground up. And it's really been amazing to, I think, like I said, a homegrown journey to see it. And with local talent as well. So, no, I'm excited to see what they, bring to the OSN Plus experience as well. Because I think that's, we need to, the customer expects it. You know what I mean? They expect that elevated experience. And it's all about content discovery, right? So whether it's music or video or recommendation, if you can promise a hyper-personalized experience, you can keep them there and you'll solve a lot of problems, I think, in terms of process.
Let's move the conversation back a little bit to talking about you, Ash, because, you're a very driven lady. It's very obvious, very clear. You can feel that when you talk to you. Do you feel uncomfortable in your role? And I don't mean uncomfortable because you don't deserve to be there. I mean, when you get high-performance individuals, quite often they seek to be uncomfortable because they see that as growth zone. Do you think that's indicative of your style?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's great. I wouldn't want to I think if you look at just going back to production, and obviously we're across the production that we're doing at OSN as well, because it really does serve from a marketing lens as well, and it's my past experience. But everybody needs to grow, everybody needs to be challenged, and I love that nobody knows exactly what they're doing in this space, especially for this region, and innovating and bringing what I know from previous companies, especially the studios, to here it's been really fun. But no, yeah, I like not knowing exactly, or the day is changing from day to day. Yeah, absolutely.
What were the lessons of last year? Last year was a funny year, like I mentioned earlier. 2023, kind of funny year. You guys must have had a lot going on for a long time with what was revealed at the end of the year. But in the downtime over the festive period, did you do any reflection in terms of what did I learn? Where did I grow? What would I like 2024 to be about?
Yeah, I guess I think my problem would be that last year was incredibly rewarding, given all the challenges that we had. We took a lot of risks, and obviously, we signed a lot of major deals with HBO and stuff. But we took a lot of risks in terms of innovating in a few ways, and they paid off for the most part exactly the way that we intended. And I think if you looked at OSN brand, 2 years ago versus now. And obviously we have the data that shows that there's been massive improvements in every key market and emerging market. And I think that's been incredibly rewarding. But now what's the next level? Is it the same KPIs? Is it the same intent that we needed? So it's almost like starting from scratch.
Yeah, one.
So, but it certainly gave confidence in taking risks here will pay off.
When you look at the competitive horizon, not just yours personally from a career perspective, but other providers in the space or even globally, what are the kind of things that you see them measuring themselves against? And do you find that those KPIs or metrics are as inspiring as you would like them to be when you overlay them to the benchmark you want to create in terms of what OSN is?
Yeah, I think the two, from a business point of view, it's either content ROI, right? So what are you spending? What are you getting? And company valuation, right? Like, what are you valued at? How is your brand perceived? What's your intent? And, I think everybody needs to operate on both. And I work for 2 studios in North America that got bought out eventually by bigger companies. And that was always the idea, right? How do you monetize in the moment? And then also, how do you build a bigger IP? Because I think that's, whether you look at the consolidation of studios, consolidation of user experiences, it's the same thing. You have to drive towards those 2 goals.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
When you look at this region, where do you see the most kind of ambition coming from in terms of the immediate competitive horizon?
Can't talk to competition too much. But I mean, when you look at the competition, there's a massive play for the obviously AVOD space, right? And especially Arabic AVOD space. I think I feel like we've solidified our place in premium Western content, and obviously we are hoping to serve our Arabic audiences a bit better with Turkish and premium Arabic content as well. But we're quite solidified in terms of the Western content. But there certainly is. And that's also the growth of production. It's booming here. It's amazing. So, you're talking in the mix. A lot of people are filming here. The tax rebates. There's a lot more experience. Incredible directors. Even from our ads and brands house, we're working with, Cannes awarded directors and everything. And it's amazing. And I love the budgets.
Is that one of the things that still excites you, looking at the content and evaluating?
Oh, yeah. Building it from the ground up. It's no different. And also executing it. It's just shorter time periods, I think. Yeah. And a little bit less risk, I think, from when you're building episodes and budgets and the development period. An episode might cost $2 million, right? So, and if you have, 10, 12 episodes, that's a huge chunk of money. And that's just like a very baseline long form drama budget. But when you're looking at ads, you just get to do more and you get to see it more. And I love that.
It always amazes me when I end up in conversations at the content end of the spectrum of things that happen within broadcasting. Just what the business model is when it comes to production and the kind of capital outlay, the exposure on that before there's any return. It's massive. The numbers are huge.
Yeah, it can be. It depends. It depends on where you sit in that funnel. But it is not for the faint-hearted, I think.
No, there's some big zeros in there.
Yeah, it's a lot, and people expect very premium content now. In some of the best content right now that you'll see is very expensive, but not enough people are watching it. Even the Netflix results that they posted a few weeks ago, you know, and that's obviously funneling down to writers and how they proceed their studio contracts. And it's really hard for people in that production business right now versus how it was. The budgets when I started out were massive, really, really big. And now they're minuscule and they're very efficient and they're driven by data analysts. And I think that can be hopefully not cumbersome to creativity and innovation.
The writer's strike definitely, in the second half of last year with the US side of my business, I was speaking to really senior C-suite CEOs, and it was amazing, not just the ripple, but the waves that caused to the whole kind of broadcast and media and entertainment economy. Just huge. I hadn't quite realized how big it was until we got to a few weeks into that, and it's wow, this is just sending a shockwave of reticence across every aspect of the sector. You said that even, that reached here in terms of what we're now able to do in this year.
Absolutely. And, even you found local creators, writers, directors who've been working internationally wanting to also work back here because they can't work under the guilds and everything in the US. But, I mean, it's having worked on both sides, it was incredibly difficult. And I'm such a nerd. I listen to all the writer podcasts every day, figuring out what was talked about at the strikes and during the at the table. And I was such a nerd in that respect, but it was a very, I think it was a very good deal for the writers. In the end, and all the stuff obviously that broached AI is a very interesting topic.
This is what I want to talk to you about next.
Oh, so you said,
I mean, it's interesting for me, right? Because again, at Red Holt, we've been using AI for the last 3 years. We use AI to do psychometric evaluations of people based on 3,000 data points when we're either going to headhunt them or when we're evaluating them. We speak to people about that. I think I may have even shown you yours.
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah, and red.
You're a red. You're a fiery red.
Red with yellow. I think.
Yeah. So that's how I know how to do this interview. But, if you... And I suppose the reason I'm saying that is because now AI is manifesting itself with enough critical mass for us to know what it looks like in terms of its implications across loads of different sectors. When you consider not just that, but also what 2024, 2025, 2026 is going to look like, with the wealth of experience you've got historically, how does it make you feel about what's going to happen in the short, medium and long term future?
Yeah, no, I mean, incredibly excited, to be honest. Like, I think it's so cool. And for me, I've been using, let's say, AI, generative AI for my whole career. Like, animation just had automation and inception. So it's like, all this generative AI has ways to go. Like, it's not going to change our business overnight, but we're already using it across most of our operations, when there's programming, scheduling, marketing, resizing, all these things. And it's only going to get better. I was listening to one of the podcasts last week with the OpenAI CEO, what's his return and everything. And he was like very heartfelt. He was very sincere. And I love that it's really just based on evolution. It's really, that is the journey that we're on. And I think it's incredible because everything that we do will be amplified. It will be additive. It will make everybody better. You have to be better than the AI. I think that's the lesson in a way as an executive. Like, you have to answer to that.
Yeah,
no.
We share a posture on it, actually.
Yeah.
My feeling about it is, I was on a podcast a couple of years ago in the capacity as a recruiter, and somebody asked me, do you think that AI or robots are going to replace humans? And I'm not saying, that's like when people were fighting wars with swords, saying, do you think, machine guns are going to replace knives? It's like, it's progress, these things are going to happen. It actually liberates a capacity of what exists to do more stuff, more innovative stuff, more creative stuff. And it really interests me when I see just how reluctant are for people to even open their mind. I'm not even talking about embracing it. I'm just talking about be open-minded about the potential that it creates in so many careers. Yeah,
no, exactly. I already encourage my team and me with taking prop engineering question, just so you know how to operationalize it for our way of working. And I think that's a really important thing, even though we're not engineers. But
we know what my team started using ChatGPT to, when we do pretty comprehensive write-ups about people, but just putting that write-up, once we've done it, into ChatGPT and seeing how it regenerates it, and also eliminating all of the grammatical and spelling mistakes. It's such a basic use of it, but it's like, it's just one way that it's brought value to my business. And actually now we've got a range of different options for the same write-up.
Yeah, I think we are more strong. In that sense, I do hope, obviously storytelling, writing, all of those things are very important to, say, development, especially for kids. I don't know how it's going to affect high schools, and I'm sure they're having massive issues with that. My kids are not there yet, but I'm very interested to see how that goes, because even me, writing in a notebook, because I've been typing for my entire career, is a very weird concept. And I think that's a very strange thing, writing a pencil. But and maybe they'll feel like that about chat.
Actually,
not writing. They'll just only put it in ChatGPT and nobody tells the story.
Voice to text? Do you use that? Voice to text?
No, I haven't started that yet, but I would welcome it versus a voice note. I think people love voice notes here.
Yeah.
Voice to text. Is there a voice note to text?
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah, you can do that. I use that all the time. In fact, it's quite funny because my wife quite often gets confused between when she's doing a voice to text or a voice note.
Okay.
And when you do voice to text, you tend to talk like a robot, in my experience. Yeah. And then she'll do that and then push send. It's like, I've just sent a voice note, but it sounds like I'm talking like a robot to the person that I've sent it to.
No, it's good.
Ash, do you think that since becoming a mum, it's changed your leadership style?
That's a good question. I don't know, actually. I actually don't know. I'm not quite sure about that. I don't think so. I think you just mature, right? Isn't it just maturity at the end of the day, but you're more confident. You also have less time to cushion all the everything. I think that's part of it. But no, I think personality, mom at home, me at work. I'm sure they're probably on the same people.
It's funny. I really like asking people that question because some people say, it's probably softened me up a bit. Other people, and I have to say, particularly females, usually say to me, it's probably made me tougher at work because I'm less tolerant. Like, I know the games that get played and how I get, I guess an extension of that question is, do you think being a parent has assisted your leadership style?
Yes, definitely. I think you're much more patient in all respects, especially when you have young kids. Less patient at home, but more patient at work.
Lucky kid.
No, I mean, it's just maturity as you get older and you figure out what is actually important in your career, in your life, and your values and everything and how that relates. And maybe some people that doesn't relate to anything that they do, but for me, it certainly does. And, being passionate and happy at work and stuff is a very important thing. But being a parent is just a lovely thing as well. So, and in Dubai, it's a lot easier than I don't know how people do it. Back home, it's much harder. So it's we're very lucky here, I think, to have the right balance. I definitely couldn't work how I work everywhere. I think it's in this region, the expectation is that you work very, very hard, but it's really only 3/4 a year, right? That there's a mass that is most of the year in the summer. So it's challenging, but it's very different. It's nice to have the options.
Do you think you're more or less ambitious than you used to be?
Always more.
Yeah. Think that'll ever stop?
I don't think so. No. I know I never even took a maternity leave, but I don't recommend that for either kids. So it's that's not something I suggest. It's just a personal choice, but I never really wanted to take the break. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
With the break, my husband would be very scared, I think, if I did the break.
I can imagine. From a personal perspective, what's the trajectory that you think you seem to love the numbers, the commercial side, all that sort of stuff. Could you see yourself veering more towards the creative side again, or do you think that the track you're on is it now? The commercial accountability is something that you really enjoy.
It will have to be both. It'll always have to be a mix. I think I would find it very hard to go back to just pure production. And it's been quite some time since I did just pure production as well. And I think also the whole industry has evolved to, obviously if you're on set and you own your own production house, it's a different thing. But if they're not building in-house productions as much, the volumes are not there. So from a network perspective, I think commercial and creativity and finding that right balance and solving that for brands and businesses. And I think everybody needs someone passionate in their business who feels like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can certainly feel that with what you do. How much do you think personal brands affect careers?
More and
LinkedIn
more.
now.
I know. Well, here. No, I do think it's incredibly important. Obviously, you know better than I how important it is.
Yeah.
But also, it's a great avenue. Especially when you get to a certain age. I'm on LinkedIn more than I'm on Instagram.
I suppose it's more the notion of marketing is the personal domain.
Yeah, exactly.
If I look at my kids now and how they're using Instagram, and not just the creativity behind what they put on their Instagram, but also the range of technologies that they're using to create that content. My 13-year-old educates me on how to do editing on
all the platforms and everything. Yeah, no, it's amazing. And the social platforms they just live on. And even just Snapchat, just for messaging and all these other things, you have to be there. And I think that's more the reason. I don't know if I love all the ChatGPT posts on LinkedIn. I think those...
They kind of stand out, don't they?
They do stand out with all the rockets and everything. I try... Still had
the rocket.
Right?
Watch out for the rocket.
The rocket or the light bulb, or they're good. I read them, but I know that it hasn't been written. So I mean, it's always.
I think they feel different.
Yeah.
I think you feel different when you read something, and then you acknowledge that it's AI, it's generative stuff, rather than someone that sat down and crafted something. Particularly as a creative, I'd imagine.
No,
and when you know what the emotional investment is.
So, no, and I use it obviously ad hoc. I'm certainly not like a daily poster in any sense, but I look and see what the industry is doing. I think it's a great, just barometer for what's going on in the world. So I use it for my news now, right? So it's a more even just a press incubator for our industry and everything, along with podcasts and everything, rather than just entertainment or, LA Weekly or whatever it is. So, no, it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Ash, final question for you. If you could give the younger you a piece of advice, what would it be?
A piece of advice. What would it be? Emotional intelligence. I think that would be something that is probably the greatest skill, especially female can have in any industry. I think emotional intelligence, because I think everybody has their own challenges, whether it's with coworkers or brands or feeling valued in their positions and stuff. I think emotional intelligence is like the number one thing that you can get a hold on. And that's what gives you confidence. That's what gives you capability as well. And just making sure that you're prepared for any type of environment, because you can't control the variables around you. And I think that is, it's not achievements. It's not ambition. It's not all these things. It's really just how you can feel value on a day-to-day basis. And that's all through your reaction. And I mean,
You think you lacked emotional intelligence before?
I think everybody does.
Yeah, I suppose so. It's a growing thing.
Yeah, I think everybody does. I think it is literally one of the most undervalued. And especially when you're dealing with loads of different cultures and working styles and everything, I think delegation is, when I was working from here, going back and forth to LA for 6 years, and delegation with teams all around the world, the production teams, commercial teams, everything in delegation, and having that right level of emotional just intelligence to deal, like, you can't always be in person. We can't always do that, and especially as we're working to much more of a hybrid remote working styles in the future. But anyways, for younger executives, and also, you really have to work hard. I think that's, and you might not get where you are, but you'll end up somewhere else. So it'll be fantastic.
Growth. Just growth.
Just growth.
Ash Rite, Head of Growth and Marketing for OSN. It's been a pleasure interviewing you. Thank you for spending the time to spend with us here at Studio Red in Dubai Silicon Oasis.
It was
good. We can invite you
Yeah.
back in 6 months and hear what's happened.
Oh yeah. I'll have a lot more to talk about it. We'll get more of the team. We'll do a panel.
We're looking forward to it. Thanks for coming,
Okay.
Ash.
Thank you.